NASA's mission is to explore the unknown.
There's more that we don't know than we do know. That's just the nature of the universe.
In the search for answers, it launches its scientists into space. Its craft beyond the limits of the solar system.
Taking risks is part of making discoveries.
Space exploration is like lighting a match. And we don't know what lurks in the shadows.
Hey, what is that?
There could be anything out there.
An unidentified object is on a collision course with the International Space Station.
They thought it was debris, but debris doesn't move that fast.
It could hit you with the force of an artillery shell.
Astronaut Chris Hadfield takes desperate measures after going blind in space.
The last thing an astronaut wants to do is actually put a hole in his suit.
And an unknown force decimates the outer reaches of the solar system.
Is something barreling towards us, someday maybe even hitting Earth.
It's like science fiction, but coming true.
NASA's missions have uncovered disturbing anomalies.
Okay, we're seeing 3 or 4 objects.
There are 3 objects.
That continue to perplex our finest scientific minds. These are NASA's Unexplained files. NASA's radar warning system detects an object on a collision course with the International Space Station.
If the ISS takes a big hit, the whole thing is just going to be torn apart.
Mission Control orders an emergency evacuation.
This is a case where you just drop everything.
The object is moving at speeds in excess of 28,000 miles per hour.
They thought it was debris, but debris doesn't move that fast.
July 16th, 2015. At 6:30 a.m. Eastern Time, NASA Mission Control receives a warning that an unidentified object is approaching the ISS.
There's a potential object that they can track that looks like it's going to poke a hole in our spaceship.
If it hits you with a high speed, it could hit you with the force of an artillery shell.
The mystery object is about to enter the space station's danger zone, an area astronauts call the pizza box.
The pizza box is a 30 by 30 by 1 mile region around the ISS that is a keep-out zone.
Anything entering the pizza box is a potentially deadly threat.
If an object is going to enter that danger zone, then the crew and the ground team take action to minimize any risk to the crew and the station.
Mission Control orders the ISS crew to prepare for evasive maneuvers.
One of the things you can do is move the space station.
The ground control team can send commands to the space station and essentially drive it to help us avoid that object.
But the object is traveling too fast for the space station to get out of the way.
This object is going to reach the space station at 8:01 a.m. That's less than an hour and a half away. That's not enough time to move the space station out of the object's path.
NASA clocks the object at an astonishing 28,000 miles per hour. If it hits the space station, the effects will be catastrophic.
If it contacts you at the right angle, it can do a lot of damage.
If the ISS takes a big hit, the whole thing is just going to be torn apart.
The nightmare scenario is a direct hit on the cooling system.
The way the cooling system on the ISS works, it's got these big radiators filled with ammonia that radiate heat out into space. If a radiator is struck by a big enough particle, the tubes that carry the ammonia coolant would be ruptured and the ammonia would leak out. If it were to leak inside the space station, it'd be catastrophic. That it's a poisonous substance humans can't breathe in.
NASA can't risk the lives of the crew. Mission Control orders them to initiate Flight Rule B4101. They must prepare to abandon ship.
Go to your Soyuz, get out of there. Just drop everything, let your tools go, and you float quickly to your escape vehicle.
The crew members scramble into the Russian-built Soyuz capsule, which acts as a lifeboat and emergency shelter.
It's 3 people sitting side by side. You're standing by for a call from the ground to say, stay or go.
When you're thinking about something coming close to the space station, you just don't really believe it's going to happen.
The crew braces for impact. All they can do is wait as the seconds count down to 8:01.
The object has ripped past the space station, missing it only by 1.5 miles.
The crew of the International Space Station lives to fight another day, but a mystery remains. How did a potentially lethal object slip through the early warning systems, protecting the station?
The ISS is protected by the most sophisticated radar sensing system in the world. It's very rare for something like this to slip by.
From a crew point of view, what's frightening is the fact that it's not possible to track every single particle that might be a threat to the International Space Station. So there could be something up there that you can't do anything about.
NASA describes the object as a piece of space debris, but it was moving far faster than any ordinary space junk.
Typical speed in low Earth orbit is about 17,000 miles per hour. This piece of space junk is unique in that it's moving twice as fast.
NASA scientists speculate how the mystery object could build up that speed. One possibility is the object might have previously collided with something else and gained speed from the ricochet.
In theory, it is possible for an object's speed and trajectory to change after a collision, but the object that hit it would have to be going extremely fast itself. So what could make this killer object be moving that quickly?
News of the close encounter attracts the interest of the UFO community. They draw attention to two spots of bright light, which appeared on the ISS live feed just 24 hours before the near miss.
The day before this emergency evacuation procedure, two objects seem to be keeping pace with the station. They look like they're tracking it for some reason.
It's curious because generally space debris doesn't follow the ISS in formation.
They change direction with respect to each other and the space station, and they start moving very quickly. It looks like they're controlled.
NASA does not comment on speculation surrounding the events leading to the unplanned emergency maneuver of the ISS.
It's interesting that we're getting these kind of debris avoidance maneuvers more frequently.
What is going on in orbital space? Are there simply too many things up there, or are there too many things up there that we don't know about?
Coming up, a NASA special agent sets up a $5 million sting to recover missing moon rock.
We had con artists selling bogus moon rocks all over the world, and I decided I'm going to go after that.
The Apollo missions bring back the most valuable rocks in human history. But the priceless artifacts go missing under strange circumstances.
Houston, we have a problem. We don't know where our moon rocks are.
Tracking down NASA's lost legacy becomes one man's quest.
I'm not going to rest until we track those moon rocks down.
The Apollo mission spurred unprecedented advances in technology.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The giants of American industry made millions supplying NASA. And some tried in other ways to make money off the back of the moon program. July 24th, 1969. Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins returned to Earth after making history. They carried with them 50 pounds of moon rock, the first of more than 2,000 precious lunar samples from the Apollo program.
President Nixon decided after the first moon landing and the last moon landing that he would gift moon rocks to 135 nations around the world, as well as the 50 states and the U.S. properties. Each rock was then embedded in lucite, mounted to a plaque with the flag of the recipient nation, and those samples became known as the Goodwill Moon Rocks.
These little pieces of rock can be worth $200,000 per ounce. So the Goodwill Rocks, they can be worth millions.
Despite their value, many of the Goodwill rocks are not treated as national treasures.
Alaska's Apollo 11 moon rock is lost in a fire. 1976, Delaware's Apollo moon rock is stolen from a display. 1977, Ireland's Apollo 11 moon rock is thrown away in a dump.
The disappearances spawn a shadowy, illegal trade.
In the 1990s, NASA's investigative arm became aware that there was a rash of sales of fake moon rocks.
We had con artists selling bogus moon rocks all over the world.
NASA assigned Special Agent Joe Goodheinz to clamp down on the illegal trade.
I decided, you know what? I'm sick and tired of con artists fleecing people out of their life savings with bogus moon rocks and dust, and I decided I'm going to go after that.
Goodheinz gets an abandoned bunker on the north side of NASA's Johnson Space Center to use as his operational HQ. He spends months chasing down leads, but after only a few arrests, he decides to change tactics.
I thought, you know what? We shouldn't be waiting for the victims to come to us. We should reach out and have the con artists approach us directly. I put an ad in USA Today titled Moon Rocks Wanted, and I basically directed the con artists to come to me.
Almost immediately, Goodheinz gets a bite.
Goodheinz gets a call from Alan Rosen, a Miami businessman, who says he has a real moon rock to sell. Goodhines is obviously skeptical and says, "What proof do you have?"
He directed me to a web page address, and on that web page address was a 10 by 14 inch plaque with a lucite ball, a flag of the recipient countries, and I immediately recognized that as a possible Apollo 17 goodwill gift. This was absolutely incredible. We weren't dealing with a con artist selling us dirt. We were dealing with a seller selling us the real thing, a moon rock. It had never happened before.
Goodhines must plan his next moves carefully to prevent Rosen from going underground and taking the moon rock with him.
I decided we're going to set up a meeting, and we're going to try to encourage him to bring out the moon rock so that we can see it and seize it.
Knowing that the seller is likely to be wary of a sting, he creates a backstory that makes him seem like a genuine buyer.
I created a fictitious company. We called it John's Estate Sales. I brought in a postal inspector by the name of Bob Krieger, and I made him the president of the company, John Marta. I took on the undercover name of Tony Coriasso, and I became the chief salesman of the company.
He and Krieger, as their alter egos, set up a meeting with Alan Rosen to inspect this moon rock and, from Rosen's perspective, seal the deal.
Goodhines and his partner arrive at the restaurant and wait for their contact.
I was wearing a loose jacket with my gun tucked into my belt in the back.
Rosen arrives almost an hour later. He immediately gets down to business.
Alan Rosen tells me he wants $5 million for the moon rock. There was one problem. We didn't have $5 million. Rosen was not going to go ahead with the deal. He was not going to do it unless we had proof that we had his asking price.
The moon rock is slipping through his fingers. Goodhines needs to find the money, and fast.
Getting the $5 million was a problem. I'll ask NASA. NASA didn't have the $5 million. We'll ask Department of Justice. They didn't have the $5 million.
What Goodhines needs is a financial backer, someone with deep pockets who'd be willing to front in the cash for no reward other than patriotic duty. He turns to two-time presidential candidate and billionaire, Ross Perot. With time running out, Goodhines picks up the phone. At first, the only response he gets is a promise from a secretary to pass on the message to Perot. Just as he's getting ready to give up on the money, Joe gets a call.
The phone rings. I pick up the phone. He says, "Hello, Joe. This is Ross Perot. How can I help you?" I said, we would love to get $5 million from you in order to get a moon rock back in a sting operation. No problem, Joe. Glad to help.
Within a few hours, Perot transfers the money into Goodhines' account, turning him into a millionaire overnight. A printed bank balance gives him the proof he needs to show he's a genuine buyer. When he requests a second meeting with Rosen to discuss the deal, the seller suggests they meet at a bank vault.
Rosen goes into the bank. He meets with the alleged bank official who's really a customs agent. The customs agent takes him into the vault and opens up a container. And in that container is the moon rock.
Agents from the U.S. Customs Department put Rosen under arrest.
Game over. We win.
The moon rock he was trying to sell is still in its original presentation case.
Examining the rock, NASA determines it's the Apollo 17 Goodwill moon rock that was presented to Honduras in 1973.
Rosen bought the rock from a retired Honduran army officer after it mysteriously disappeared from the presidential palace.
After a lengthy court case, the moon rock was returned to the people of Honduras.
A U.S. District Court finds that Alan Rosen's attempt to sell the rock was not illegal, and he faces no charges. Today, Joe Goodhines continues to hunt for the Goodwill moon rocks.
There are 158 moon rocks that we gave away to the nations of the world. They're still missing. And I'm not going to give up until I find those.
Coming up, Chris Hadfield loses vision in both eyes on his first spacewalk.
And rendered him blind outside the space station, floating in space.
Astronaut Chris Hadfield steps into the vacuum of space on his first spacewalk. Moments after leaving the space station, he loses vision.
This is unprecedented. We've never had this happen to an astronaut before.
Mission Control is powerless to help.
When you're on a spacewalk, you're pretty much dependent on yourself.
It's very simple. If you lose your cool,
you die.
April 22nd, 2001. The crew of the ISS is 3 days into Mission 6A. Chris Hadfield is preparing to walk in space for the first time in his astronaut career.
These were the relatively early days of the International Space Station program, and we were at the stage of major assembly, which meant a lot of spacewalks were going to be required.
Chris isn't a celebrity just yet. Nobody has seen him singing David Bowie songs or his funny little science projects.
The water sort of has it stick to my hand.
Hatfield's job is to install a component called the Canada Arm 2.
This big robotic arm, it's like a big white crane. We could not have built the space station or done a lot of the spacewalks that we have had to do and will do without that arm.
Hadfield is about to make a piece of national history as the first Canadian to leave a spacecraft.
There's nothing like a spacewalk. That is the pinnacle of almost every astronaut's experience. They're floating 260 miles above the Earth at 17,500 miles an hour.
You're anxious, you're excited, but the thing that really is going through your head is, I know I have these things to do out there, I want to make sure I do them right.
Within moments of beginning his EVA, Hatfield is in trouble.
He gets a sudden burst of pain in his left eye, and tears start to flow.
The astronaut attempts to push through the pain and keep working, but the situation gets worse.
In microgravity, tears don't fall. They don't run down your face like they do here on Earth. It just formed a ball of moisture and liquid on his eye.
His left eye is blind and snapped shut, and the problem is spreading.
It ran across his nose and went into his other eye, and just rendered him blind outside the space station, floating in space.
Trapped inside his own suit, Hadfield is powerless to fix the problem.
When you're out on a spacewalk in your spacesuit, you can't reach up and just wipe your eye if something gets into it.
Hadfield contacts Mission Control in Houston. Technicians immediately start to brainstorm what could be going wrong.
So one of the first thoughts of what could cause this eye irritation was possibly lithium hydroxide, which is a chemical that we use as part of the suit to scrub the carbon dioxide out of the environment.
Leaks of this highly caustic chemical have caused problems on previous NASA missions.
During Gemini 10 in 1966, John Young and Mike Collins did have this problem where lithium hydroxide did get into their helmets, and they had to terminate the EVA early.
NASA technicians feared the situation could get worse unless the astronaut takes immediate action.
Lithium hydroxide is a very caustic chemical, and so if it gets into the suit environments, it's cause for great concern.
If the substance reaches the lungs, it could cause violent choking and eventual suffocation. Mission Control orders Hatfield to open his suit to the vacuum of space in an attempt to flush out the dangerous substance.
This is certainly not a normal procedure. The last thing an astronaut wants to do is actually put a hole in his suit.
He still can't see, and he has this vent, his oxygen going out to space, and I think he's just hoping that this vent to space will work for him.
After 30 minutes of blindness and pain, the emergency vent appears to work. Hatfield's vision returns. Incredibly, he then continues with his assigned task, working non-stop outside the space station for almost 8 hours.
And that's just the nature of how astronauts are. We're never quitters. We want to get the job done, and we'll do everything we can to keep going.
Astronauts, by their nature, have to suppress their fear, because what they're doing is inherently scary.
NASA conducts an investigation into the incident. There is no sign of the lithium hydroxide leak they'd suspected, so they look for other causes. They first investigate a medical condition caused by low gravity, known as papilledema.
Papilledema and some of the other things that we've seen could be caused by elevated levels of intracranial pressure, or the pressure inside of your head.
Papilledema can cause pain and tears, but the symptoms take several hours to manifest. Hatfield's blindness struck within seconds. Eventually, NASA's investigation arrives at a simpler explanation.
They were going over all the possibilities with Mission Control when Capcom said, "Chris, did you remember to use your anti-fog stuff? We don't think you used it properly. Are you sure you got it all off?"
Just like when you go out and go scuba diving, you use a little soap or spit to clean your mask to make sure it stays clear and doesn't fog up. We do the same thing. We have a detergent solution that we rub on the inside of the visor, and as it turned out, there was just a little residue of soap, and so Chris got soap in his eye.
The explanation solves the mystery of Hatfield's sudden space blindness, but it doesn't impress the astronaut himself.
He said, "Really, we're using detergent? No more tears wasn't an option?"
Still to come. Mysterious orbs of light appear out of nowhere and enter people's homes.
It moved towards her. She screamed, and it exploded.
All over the world, witnesses report terrifying encounters with eerie spheres of glowing light.
They appear out of thin air. They seem to move pretty much at random, and they're dangerous.
They seem to defy the laws of nature.
It can even pass through solid objects.
A NASA scientist investigates.
They kind of look like lightning, but they don't act like lightning, so what could they be?
March 19th, 1963. Eastern Airlines Flight 539 encounters a violent thunderstorm as it nears the airspace of New York City. This is no ordinary storm.
A university professor of electronics was flying on an internal flight over the United States. He heard a loud crash, and immediately a blue ball about the size of a football appeared in front of him, travelling past him all the way down the fuselage and past the air stewardess, where it disappeared with a loud explosion.
This strange encounter is just one example of the phenomenon scientists call ball lightning.
People have been reporting this phenomenon for centuries. There must be thousands of witnesses, but we still don't understand it.
The terrifying spheres can strike in any condition without warning.
A very interesting ball lightning case that I investigated took place in 1975 in the West Midlands.
The city of Birmingham, England was in the grip of a fierce lightning storm when one of the balls appeared inside a house.
A lady was in the kitchen of her home. Suddenly, a ball appeared in front of her, about 4 inches, 5 inches in diameter. It moved towards her. She screamed and instinctively brushed the ball away with her hand. It exploded.
The strange glowing orb inflicts severe burns, then makes a sound like a gunshot as it vanishes.
When she examined her clothing, she realized there was a hole that had been made in her tights and in her dress.
After centuries of speculation, a NASA scientist undertakes the first serious investigation into ball lightning.
Warren Rail carried out a systematic study by collecting reports of ball lightning from employees of one of the NASA laboratories. He was quite surprised to find how many people there said they'd seen ball lightning.
The data leads Rail to some intriguing observations.
Rail finds that there are 2 types of ball lightning. One that's formed close to the ground and stays there. The second that's formed up in the air and slowly drifts around.
Despite collecting hundreds of eyewitness reports, Rail is unable to explain the nature of these strange orbs.
The problem with ball lightning is that for a long time, the only evidence we had is human observations. And in science, a human observation is just not rigorous. You have to have an instrument measurement.
Part of the reason it's so difficult to get to the bottom of what ball lightning is because it's so difficult to capture it on camera.
In 2012, a chance encounter in Qinghai, China, sheds new light on the centuries-old mystery of ball lightning.
Chinese scientists are recording a thunderstorm using a spectrometer. They're lucky enough to see ball lightning.
It seemed to be about 15 feet across, and it traveled a distance of about 45 feet.
It's the first time scientists have encountered ball lightning with the right equipment to analyze it.
They were able to obtain a spectrum from this, which gave them some indication of the elements that were present. Elements consistent with material found in ordinary soil.
The analysis reveals the ball of lightning contains traces of silicon, calcium, and iron.
This is incredible. We know what it's made of.
This amazing discovery provides the first concrete evidence of the weird glowing ball's composition.
So this seems to prove that at least this kind of ball lightning is produced by lightning hitting the ground, vaporizing rock and soil to produce these elements.
When lightning strikes the ground, some of the material in the ground becomes ionized.
The atoms and particles of soil thrown into the air by the lightning strike have their electrons stripped away. These tiny bits of dirt become positively charged.
So it's going to draw any electrons in the area to it, and when those electrons recombine with that ion, light will be emitted.
It's this breaking and reforming of particles by a lightning strike that creates the strange glowing balls. It's a compelling theory, but it doesn't explain some of the most famous sightings.
While this might work as an explanation for ball lightning that's seen in the open air, it doesn't work very well when you try to explain ball lightning within a building or seen within an aircraft.
Some of these glowing balls are appearing in clear skies. No thunder or lightning, so they can't be made from lightning. Something else must be happening.
It seems that, for now, the enigma of ball lightning endures.
The fact that ball lightning has been studied for nearly 200 years and there's still no real solution to what it might be makes it one of the most exciting mysteries of science.
Up next, something is tearing a hole in our solar system.
There are forces at work here, and we don't understand how this is happening.
Scientists detect signs of a destructive force on the fringes of our solar system.
It appears massive enough to cause damage.
It's growing around the sun, stirring up this region, turning it into dust.
Did ancient astronomers predict its coming?
It's like science fiction, but coming true.
August 30th, 1992. Scientists at the Mauna Kea Observatory in Hawaii discover an unidentified object beyond the known limits of the solar system.
Before 1992, we hadn't found anything past Pluto, and we hadn't expected anything to be there.
Another discovery soon follows, then another, until scientists realize they are looking at millions of objects in the outer reaches of the solar system.
We start to see these enormous populations of objects, this vast reservoir.
These icy objects make up a band around 2 billion miles deep, known as the Kuiper Belt. They may offer clues about how the solar system began.
These are primordial pieces that tell us about the composition and the structure of the material from which our solar system formed.
This belt of rocky objects represents the leftovers of the birth of our solar system.
But as astronomers at the University of Hawaii look deeper into this giant asteroid belt, they discover something completely unexpected.
Just as you're coming to the part of the Kuiper Belt that has the most material, it stops. It ends. There's nothing else beyond it. There should be an enormous reservoir of material as you go farther out, and it's just not there.
Everything we know tells us that the vast ring of rocks should extend deep into space, but instead, it stops dead, like a cliff edge, with total emptiness beyond.
No one can explain it. There should be loads of asteroids here, but there's not.
Why did it just stop so suddenly?
Perhaps the most intriguing theory to explain the pure emptiness is that something vast and invisible has cleared the area.
There could be another planet out there, up to 20 times the size of the Earth.
Astronomers call it Planet X.
There have been speculations, always, that there's a Planet X out there that is sculpting the Kuiper Belt from the outside.
The gravitational pushes and pulls from this planet are kind of like a broom, sweeping this material, pushing it together, and causing it to collide, grind down. We're talking about a 10th planet in the solar system. It's like science fiction, but coming true.
Planet X, an unknown world at the edge of our solar system, is a science fiction staple. But the idea of the invisible planet goes back to the very earliest days of astronomy.
Over and over again, people have hypothesized that there were more than just the planets that we know of today. In fact, you can even go back to the time of the Babylonians when they posited the idea that there might be some 12th planet of our solar system on some strange orbit.
A distant planet out there that we haven't been able to see yet, barreling towards us, someday maybe even hitting Earth.
Today, astronomers can access the latest data from infrared observatories and space probes in the search for Planet X.
The scientific community is actively involved in trying to find material in the very distant parts of the solar system. We see strange evidence that indicates there's some hidden mystery out there. Maybe it's a Planet X.
In 2016, computer modeling by astronomers at Caltech provides the strongest evidence yet of an unseen planet lurking at the outer edge of our solar system. But to date, no one has located Planet X.
Maybe it's too dark. Maybe we haven't looked in the right place. Maybe it's very dense and small.
The search continues. In 2006, NASA launches the New Horizons probe to answer some of the mysteries of the outer solar system. Its 3 billion-mile journey lasts more than a decade.
Is it possible for something the size of a planet to remain undetected for all these years? Of course it is. The sky is enormous. The places that such a planet could be hiding are vast.
On August 28, 2015, New Horizons gets a new target. Hubble telescope images indicate the presence of an unknown object deep within the Kuiper Belt. New Horizons should make contact sometime in 2019.
We've only just started exploring the Kuiper Belt. We still don't really know what to expect out there.
Still to come. Mysterious explosions turn night into day in the skies over Russia.
Something terrible happened. There doesn't seem to be a natural cause.
A huge flash lights up the skies above a highly restricted area in central Russia.
This huge explosion covers half of the sky in front of them.
Dashcam footage of the terrifying incident becomes an online sensation.
It scared so many Russians to hear them screaming and wondering what was going on.
The Russian authorities just don't want to talk about it.
November 14, 2014. The night skies over Russia's remote Sverdlovsk region explode into light.
People witness an enormous burst of orange light that turns night into day.
They see this huge explosion on the horizon that covers half of the sky in front of them.
On a highway just outside the small industrial town of Reg, a Russian motorist captures the event on his dashcam.
This time we have actual footage of this going on over Russia and the Urals.
It scared so many Russians, and they took a lot of pictures of it. You could hear them screaming and wondering what was going on.
This huge orange and yellow fireball. It's very large, very big, and then it immediately disperses to nothing.
Word of the event quickly spreads.
A huge orange light over Russia is something we're going to pay attention to.
The Sverdlovsk region is an area about the size of Nebraska, deep in the Russian interior. During the Cold War, the Russian authorities made it totally off limits to foreigners to protect the military secrets hidden there.
It was so remote, so far from anything, that you could test weapons of any kind out there, including biological weapons.
No official explanation for the strange lights comes out of Russia.
The Russian authorities refuse to comment on it. They just don't want to talk about it.
Many locals believe the incredible light show was evidence of a meteor strike.
Meteorites enter the atmosphere at a tremendous speed. They burn up and explode into a giant fireball.
The town of Chelyabinsk, site of a devastating meteor explosion in 2013, is only 100 miles away.
A 20-meter meteor streaked across the sky at a very low grazing angle and exploded with 25 times the explosion that devastated Hiroshima at the end of World War II.
Many of the Sverdlovsk locals have friends and family caught in the blast.
It blew out windows in over 7,200 office buildings in 6 nearby cities.
No shockwave accompanies the bizarre light show over Sverdlovsk, but some believe it is another meteor burning up in Earth's atmosphere.
It is a classic example of a meteor fireball. It's above the clouds, so you don't see the meteor, you just see the light.
It's not surprising to see a flash in the sky from an incoming meteor. We have approximately 78,000 tons of material hitting the Earth every single year.
But there's a problem with the meteor theory.
I would not have expected such a deep red-orange color.
Meteorites typically explode white, not orange, so something else is probably going on here.
When footage of the light flash goes viral, online commentators suggest it could be an explosion from an industrial accident.
One local site suggested that there's an old chemical plant nearby that could have exploded.
If you have a chemical plant that explodes, it definitely could look that big and that yellow and that hot.
But local news reports contain no mention of any such incidents.
Even in Russia, you'd expect an event like that to make the news, and it would show up on satellite imagery.
We would almost certainly see what was going on, especially if it was a flash that big.
Other commentators speculate that the colossal light flash could be made by the Russian military.
We expect that the Russians would test things far from prying eyes. And so when something strange happens in the middle of Russia, there's an immediate suspicion that the Russian military is up to something.
What could be going on here? Could this be a rocket test, a missile launch?
Missile testing can produce spectacular light shows.
The color, the red color, the orange color, is consistent with a rocket motor.
The bright flash, the brief duration, that's what happens when rockets explode. The Russian military denies involvement, but that's what they do.
on March 17, 2015, the weapon testing theory gains ground when cameras in Russia capture another weird light in the night sky.
This second explosion, about 4 months later, is very different. It's blue and white. It also had some impact on lighting and electronics locally.
Military experts speculate that Russia could be testing a devastating new secret weapon.
It's possible that this blue and white explosion that we've seen was in fact the testing of an EMP weapon. An electromagnetic pulse, an EMP, can be used to take out an enemy's electronics, computers, communications, and the like.
The Russian authorities have not offered any official explanation for either incident.
The official word from Russia was that there is no official word.
The two remarkable flashes continue to provoke speculation.
To this day, we still don't know what this strange event is.
There doesn't seem to be a natural cause. It remains completely unexplained.
As we enter a new era of exploration, we encounter new and unpredictable threats. Even with the most advanced technology, our astronauts are only human. Our own planet is still a place of mystery and wonder. And fear of the unknown is never far away.